What's up everybody, Jesse here, or Game Over Jesse as some of you all may know me, and today I want to talk about my experience working at GameStop. Now this was a while back, but I've seen a lot of people talking about their horrible experience working at GameStop, or they've talked about their amazing experience working at GameStop. Mine falls somewhere in the middle, but I would say it was more of a positive experience than a negative experience. I almost have no complaints, but I thought this was something that a lot of people going into working at GameStop would be interested in. Now, my time there started sometime around the holiday season, whenever the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One was first launching. So for those of you who don't know, not only did I work at several used video game stores, but I also have experience in the other side of the video games industry. For about 7 years now, I would say maybe 2010, I started writing for different, very popular gaming websites, promoting games, writing the news about games, rumors, Nintendo press releases, stuff like that, covering video games, and then I moved on to working in the video game store. Now I do the same thing writing about video games, except now I turn those articles into scripts for videos and talk to the camera just like this. Sometimes I'll do the occasional Let's Play, but that's not the point. The point is my experience at GameStop. So let's begin with the interview experience. I went in, I was talking to the main manager there. He asked me about my prior experience writing for these different websites. At the time, I was writing for Zelda Dungeon, not just one of the largest Zelda websites in the world, but one of the largest fan-ran Nintendo websites in the world. And it was a very great experience. He asked me about that. I believe that was the main reason I was actually hired at that GameStop. Some of the questions were very generic questions. Why do you want to work here? Why are you excited to work here? What are your plans for the future? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? The same questions I feel almost every job has asked me. But there was some other stuff, like if there was someone who was a fan of couch co-op games but only had a PlayStation, what game would you recommend them? If someone was a fan of Mario Kart games but didn't own a Nintendo anymore, what kind of game would you recommend them? He would do a little bit of role play. Let's say that I'm interested in this game. What can you tell me about it? There was a moment where we joked around about how I was a big Zelda fan, but he didn't necessarily like Zelda because he had spent months when the very first Zelda game came out mowing lawns and everything, and he saved up all this money and he did all this work as a kid, and he ended up just not liking Zelda. So I think that made him kind of go against the series, or at least that's how it seemed during the interview. A few days later we came back for orientation. After I found out I was getting the job, we had a group orientation with a lot of the other hirees or future possible employees at the time. I made a very bad impression there because when I was there, I was very sleepy, so I kept yawning in the middle of it while he was giving instructions, telling us what our day-to-day was going to be like and everything. There was one other person that was being hired that had previous experience at GameStop, but he was just letting us know, like, when you come in, you'll do this. You'll mostly be talking to people, helping find games, stocking the shelves. You know, basic work. None of us was really going to do anything behind the cash register for the first week or so, not until it got a little bit busier for the holiday season. So I get there on the first day. It's the assistant manager. She was really nice. She showed me everything that I needed to do. There was also a second assistant manager there, but I wasn't working under him. I was working under, I won't say her name, but the female assistant manager. She was teaching me everything I needed to know, showing me how to stack the games and everything. Because what happens, someone brings in the game, you have to take it in, scan it, give them whatever the game is worth, and then you take the disc out, put it in a little slip, put that slip in a stack behind the counter, and then you would put the empty case on the side counter, on like the actual counter where the cash registers are. And then when you get free time, when there's not a lot of customers in, or you're not helping anyone, when you don't have anything else to do, or if you're the extra person like I was, you would have to go over, get all of the cases, and then when you scan the games, there are stickers that print out. These are the barcodes and stuff that come on that you can see on the back of it that says GameStop, pre-owned price, blah blah blah. So you'd have to put them in very specific spots, go out, put them on the shelf, and then you would come back, get the actual discs, and then you would categorize them. PlayStation game, everything was in alphabetical order, but the PlayStation games were in a certain spot. Xbox games, obviously. Everything was categorized by the console, and then there was also the alphabetical categorization. At the time it was funny because the PlayStation 4, Xbox One had just came out, so you would open up the shelf for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One games, and there would be like maybe 10 different games. Like there would be like Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Need for Speed, Rivals I believe was the game at the time. So it was like very few games, and then you would open up the Xbox 360 drawer, and the entire thing would just be like M through O, and like the entire shelf would be full of like hundreds of games from just like those letters. So that was basically my job at first. The manager was really nice. There was never a pressure. This is one of the things that inspired me to want to make this video, because there's a lot of people in their videos, they're like, oh, GameStop, they're an evil company, they force you to do this, you'll get fired if you don't sell enough subscriptions to their magazine, their Game Informer magazine. If you don't meet a certain quota, you'll get in trouble. Not at all. I assume, just like any place, you're going to have bad employees, you're going to have great employees. If you have a manager who is just horrible, maybe he'll get on to someone and be like, hey, you need to do this, blah, 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 you're in trouble, you didn't meet your quota, you're fired, whatever. But with our manager, and again, we probably just had a good manager or a good store, or maybe we were just so busy that without trying to meet that quota, we would meet it or pass it, so he didn't have to get on to us. But it was never a moment where I felt like I needed to upsell someone. Obviously, and this is at every GameStop, it's a bit annoying, but Walmart, Target, McDonald's, every place does this to where they try to upsell you. At McDonald's, you order a drink, fries, and a burger. They'll say, do you want to... I don't think they do it anymore, but they used to always say, do you want to supersize it? Which, like, instead of getting a small drink, do you want to get a large or extra large? At Walmart, any of the other places, they ask you if you want the warranty in case it breaks or gets scratched or something if you're buying a game, movie, camera, or whatever. At GameStop, same thing. You'll take it there, it'll pop up on the screen for the person at the cash register. Ask if they want to pre-order certain games, what are they looking forward to, do they want to buy a warranty, do they want to get a rewards card, because they'll save money. It's not just them giving you money, they'll end up making it back within like a few purchases, especially if you buy games often. So it's not just GameStop that does that. Their Circle of Life thing, everyone's like, oh, GameStop's ending their Circle of Life thing. I just pulled it up. The Circle of Life was 1, pre-owned sales, 2, trade-ins, 3, pre-orders, 4, reward cards. And then 5, which would be what they wanted to do the least of, which was new game sales. Obviously, if you run out of used games or used consoles, you want to sell the new merchandise, but they pushed for the used ones to be sold first. Not only is it cheaper for the customers, but it would also get GameStop more money. But again, that's why I kind of wanted to make this video. I never had a manager like riding on my back saying that I needed to meet a certain quota, and it was just an overall fun job, especially compared to some of the other used video game stores that I worked at. There was one video game store that I worked at, I won't say the name. It was absolutely horrible. Not because of the store itself, but were the people that came there. There was no one that came there, actually. And it was specifically, I think it was honestly because of the people that was running it. I had such a great time working at GameStop when I went to this other video game store. At GameStop, we would get like 50 people coming in a day. That's just a number off the top of my head, I'm not really sure. There'd be several people come in like every 20-30 minutes, so I imagine something around 50 people the entire time that I was working for the hours of the day. And then at this other video game store, I would be lucky if there would be 5 people come in. And that's just because it was right beside of a pizza place, Domino's. So people would go in, order their pizza, and then they would look around for a game. If they seen something they liked, they would buy it, but most of the time they were just there waiting on their pizza. You would occasionally get customers come in that knew exactly what they wanted or whatever, and it was the same job as GameStop, but this used game store, very unorganized. The people there would make fun of everybody. There was 3 other employees when I was hired. They'd recently just fired 3. One was a manager that came on. He was a manager a few months before I had started working there. He got caught for stealing money. The other 2 people, I forgot what they did. Apparently they were just lazy. They would talk back to the employees. They got fired. And then they were planning on, there was the main manager, there was the assistant manager, and then there was just the 3rd employee who I was being brought in to replace. I was there on the first day, and the main manager asked me if I felt like I could open and close the store on my first day. With no other employees there, come in, open the store, count the cash register, do all that. And then on some days I would come in the middle of the day and then work and close the store. And in my head I was like, well, you don't even know me. Like, you interviewed me for like 10 minutes and I've been working for about 2 hours, and you're asking me if I can come in and count the safe and do all that. Like, I can kind of see why like it was being poorly managed. And then the entire time that I was working there, it's like the assistant manager would always have her girlfriend come in, and she would be sitting there. They'd basically be chatting the entire time, which was fine. There wasn't any customers coming in, but then if I wasn't doing anything, I would be in trouble. Like, they had the mentality that like you needed to stay busy. The thing was, there was no customers to stay busy. You can only clean so much. You can only have things so organized. It's not like you can go and re-alphabetize all the games. So there's only so much you could do when you don't have customers. At GameStop, you stayed busy because there was constantly customers coming in and out. But then, like, within 30 minutes of GameStop, you would do exactly as much work as you would the entire 8 hours of this other used video game store. I just felt like it was just being ran poorly, it was being managed poorly, but it was a really easy job. We would have, like, at GameStop, we might get dozens of customers a day. At this place, you would be lucky to get 5 or 6 people to walk in the store the entire day, let alone actually buy something. We were right next to a pizza place, so when people came in, they were just waiting on their pizza, they were looking around, they might buy something, and then you would get people that would come in and they would have their entire collection of the games they'd collected for the past 10, 20 years. This one person came in with like Sega, Super Nintendo, PlayStation, and then like dozens and dozens of games for the different consoles. Rare games too, like games that we would end up selling for $50 or $60. He traded all of this in for, I think it was an Xbox 360 with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, or maybe it was Modern Warfare 3. He said he had been watching a lot of it on Twitch, and he had wanted, obviously this was back a few years ago, so the Xbox 360 and everything was worth a little bit more. So he traded all this stuff in and got it, and I don't see how people could give away their childhood. Like, this basically what you're doing. Like, if you grew up as a video game fan and you have these boxes of games and consoles that you grew up playing, you're literally handing in your entire childhood of video games, or at least in terms of video games, for one of the yearly Call of Duty games that comes out on a system that at the time was already like the older console, because there was already the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 out. So it was just really, really weird. I don't know why customers would do that, but that's the type of customers you would deal with. It would either be people coming in, browsing, not getting anything, or someone would come in, turn in their entire childhood, and there would be like maybe 10 of these people a day. Like, you would get 5 people come in from the pizza store, and then you would get 5 people that were doing whatever. But then the really weird thing happened when they said that the old manager was fired because he was stealing money and being unorganized, stuff like that. There was one night when the cash register was short like $100 or $200, something like that. And I tried calling the manager, couldn't get a hold of him. Tried calling the assistant manager, couldn't get a hold of her. I didn't want it to be blamed on me, so I just wrote it down as if it was under $100, like you're supposed to. Then the next day, I think it was the next day, I actually got in trouble because the manager said that if any time that it's like that, just write it down as if it's there. And I'm like, well, isn't the entire point of checking the cash register and everything and turning everything in at night to make sure the money's accurate? I didn't say anything to that to him. I was thinking it in my head. I was worried that maybe I would get in trouble for it. Maybe the manager would blame it on me. Maybe he thought, well, the old manager got away with stealing money for months and months and months. Maybe I can do it too. Blame it on the new employee. I get a few extra $100, a few $1,000 extra. I don't get in trouble. It's all blamed on the new guy. So that's what I thought was going on. I should have literally just quit right then, but I needed the job, so I didn't really need the job. I just wanted the job. It was so fun because you are talking about video games to people. But that was my experience with that. There was, like, I would get in trouble for some stupid stuff. Like, every time I would go there on an off day, or whenever I would come in, there would be the assistant manager and her girlfriend would be there the entire time, and they would just be talking back and forth, which I didn't really see a problem with. I thought it was fine. But it was very rarely that I actually seen the other people work. It seemed every time I got there, since I was the new employee, I was made to do almost everything. And then they would even talk negatively about the other employee. Like, the assistant manager and the manager would literally, like, the person they hired me in to replace, they would just drill on, say like a bunch of horrible stuff about her. Say that, like, she's not able to come in all the time, she blah blah blah. And then the assistant manager said one of the dumbest things that I heard, because the third employee had an exotic name from, like, I forgot exactly what it was, but it was like another country's name that would be common over there but not so popular over here. And she would be like, oh, she calls herself blah 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 because it's a gamer name. And at first I was just like, okay. And then, like, about a week after working there, I found out, no, she doesn't call herself that because it's an edgy thing to do. She calls herself that because that is her name. Like, how do you not know that what a person's name is when you're supposed to be their manager? And then, like, there was all the negative talk about her from them. And then whenever it would just be me and the assistant manager, I would hear her talk bad about the manager. And then the manager would talk, like, everybody was talking bad about everybody. And then, like, everything was also unorganized, and it was, like, horrible. So maybe there are used video game stores out there that are really good. But I'm just saying, in my personal experience, working at GameStop was like... Working at GameStop, while a harder job, because it was more professional, it was more organized, you actually had to work because you had customers. So it was a harder job, but it was the better job. I had a lot more fun at that job. I actually got along with the employees. I joked around about them. I joked around with them, sorry. At this used video game store, you weren't doing anything. And then the employees there made it so difficult that you really didn't want to do anything, because if you did something, even if you did it perfect, I knew that I would be criticized for it. Like, there would be moments where there's always the thing that's like, keep working, keep, like, even if you're not busy, do something to make yourself busy. When you're working 8 hours at a video game store and there are 2 employees that come in the entire day and one of them ends up buying something, one of them brings in games to exchange for credit or whatever, you can't be busy. At GameStop, I got everything finished. We cleaned, we organized, we shelved stuff, we did everything we needed to do. The thing was, there was no customers to stay busy. You can only clean so much, you can only have things so organized. It's not like you can go and re-alphabetize all the games. So there's only so much you could do when you don't have customers. If you enjoy the videos on my channel, please consider subscribing, checking out my second channel focusing on movies and TV shows, and my Patreon where you can join in as a guest in upcoming videos, watch new videos first, you can have me join in and collaborate on videos for your own channel, have custom artwork or custom avatars made of yourself or for your channel, and much more.